Hello. So on this is the next writer's guide, the next part of the writer's guide series. Thanks for watching. Thanks for coming along. Hope you enjoyed the world building episode we did last time. This time I want to discuss something that's very, very apparent to me in current writing these days, and that's humans. I've had quite a lot of questions going forward about humanity and how to do them in a fantasy setting, or in any book in general that's not based on Earth, that has all the races in it. And they are quite a difficult thing to do, simply because of how normal they are, of how average they are. I've lost count of the sheer amount of settings that have humans as just the bog standard option, and if you look at literature these days, you do find that almost every single book that you will find on a shelf, if it's sci-fi or fantasy, will have some sort of, crux with humanity going on, okay? And humans will always be the bog standard race. They will always be the normal race, the race that you can identify with most. And if you can see on the next part here, why are they boring? They are boring. When we go into different books and different pieces of philosophy and things in fantasy literature and sci-fi, they are boring. They're the standard choice, Let's go through them. Some of the most famous options, okay? So you got Lord of the Rings. Humans in that are normal, yeah? They just are. The elves have their own thing, with nature. The dwarves have their own thing with wanting gold and being like tough and liking meat and beer and stuff and being underground. They have, the people, the dwarves in Middle Earth have like their own runic language. That they're very Norse in the way that they talk and the way that their language is scripted and things. And then you have obviously the elves have very flowing language. They have two complete separate languages, Sindarin and Quenya, which are totally they're based on Welsh and Icelandic, I think. So they have their own culture. What do humans have? They have normal. They have, Minas Tirith. It's just a city, The closest humans get to being interesting in Lord of the Rings is Rohan, where you have Vikings on horseback. But that's literally where it stops. It doesn't go anywhere else. There's no real, even in the appendices of Lord of the Rings, there is a lot of history to do with humans, but there's no culture. There's no underlying culture to the entire thing. So they're normal, yeah. World of Warcraft again, if you play that game, if you ever have played that game, humans are the bog standard option. There are lots of different races on there, but World of Warcraft, humans are the normal. They rule most of the world, as they do in every single fantasy setting that you'll come across. Dungeons and Dragons has a load of settings and world states, and in each and every single one I've come across, humans have been the dominant race. They've been the normal race. They've had this weird drive, that humans tend to have. Humans are like conquerors, and they're politicians, and they're humans. Fantasy literature always loves to tell you that humans are adaptive. That's the thing that they like to say. They're adaptive. Which is basically, as soon as I hear that, I say, what? So what you're telling me is they're boring. They can be anything, so they're boring. Yeah, they don't have anything of their own. Humans in fantasy literature are, they're adaptive and they're zealous. Those are the two things they always are. They're adaptive and zealous. They're religious and they're adaptive. They can do. Basically, the setting is giving you an excuse. It's saying humans are just. It's lazy. It's just humans are just humans. They can do anything that they want, but they're very jealous. They have their beliefs and that they all stick to them. It's like. It's vague, it's lazy, and that's humans in a nutshell in most settings. So, A Song of Ice and Fire, well, that's a bit different. You do have the children of the forest and other people, but mainly humans are the only race in the setting. But they're still just humans. They're just humans. There's no cut back there. They're just humans. Star Wars is an egregious example, yeah. In Star Wars, humans are incredibly boring, yeah. You've got Twi'leks, you've got Rhodians, you've got all these different races that are in Star Wars that are quite interesting, have their own different backgrounds and cultures. And you've got humans. Humans don't have a background or a culture. Humans are just humans. Star Trek, exactly the same. You know, the humans have the Federation. Great. Cool. What's their culture like? Well, what's the Klingon culture like? Klingon culture is based on, you know, combat and being, you know, being honourable and always fighting tough enemies and being pirates and being your own person, you know. They're a nomadic society, are the Klingons, you know. They have their own language. They have, you know, their own style of weaponry and dueling and things like that. You know, and they're very easy to insult. What about humans? Oh, humans are just humans. So they're boring. Okay, cool. And Shadowrun, even though I love Shadowrun, it's one of my favourite settings, probably is my favourite setting. Humans are boring. They just are. I'm always a human in Shadowrun, and I only go as a human in Shadowrun to prove the point. I try and prove the point that humans can be interesting as well. But most of the time, humans are the guys running the corporations. Humans are the guys, you know, controlling everything. You know, if you want to be an interesting character in Shadowrun, and you don't, and you know you're new to the game, yeah, go play a dwarf or an orc or an elf or something. Yeah, because humans are generally quite boring. So that's why they're boring. Let's move on. You know, here's your bog standard human he's just rolled up into a role-playing game or a setting he's been written into. You're writing your first fantasy book, and this is a human character that you've got in there. He's called Sir Red Lion something, and he's just, yeah, he's there. I mean, look at him. He's just normal. He's just a normal guy, wearing armor, looking about. Nothing too weird about his appearance. Nothing too weird in his stance. He's just normal. Yeah, there's nothing outlandish there. If you want to come into a role-playing game or you want to write a setting, most of your protagonists will be humans, and there's a very good reason for that, which is what we'll cover in just a sec. So, humans in writing are the safe option. Yep. Humans are the normal choice. They're paste. They're white. They're neutral grey. Yeah, they're in the background. They're a very easy option to build your setting on and say, okay, humans are here, and this is what they do. They are everywhere. They're the most numerous race, and they're very zealous, and they're very adaptive. You know, things like that. They're easy to connect to our world, and they're a bridge between reality and the page. So, and that ties into this to the third point as well. They're identifiable and easy to empathize with. So, what I mean by that is, with a human protagonist, it's easy for the reader to put themselves in the shoes of this human protagonist, yeah? And there's nothing inherently wrong with that. The problem with humans in these books is generally on a racial level rather than on a personal level. So if you have a character your main character is a human, like a Luke Skywalker or something like that, who's going into this weird world and he's walking around, or maybe he even knows about the world, because it's very rare that you would have a fantasy character just come into a world, you know? So maybe he already knows about the world, so he's explaining to the reader as you're going through all these different things that are going on, and they're the everyman. You know, humans are the everyman. They're the more identifiable everyman. It's a lot harder for a writer to convey, and it's a lot harder for a reader to digest a protagonist when they're an elf, or when they're a dwarf, or when they're something else, because they're constantly reminded that they're not human. Yeah, humans are easy to do, and that doesn't mean you shouldn't do it. I do it myself. And every setting I've ever written, every story I've ever written has been from a human point of view. But this is just giving you some ideas why they're used so often, and why so many writers actually make them the dominant race in their setting without ever putting too much thought into why they're the dominant race in their setting. So, if humans are the normal choice, they're easy to connect to our world, and a bridge between reality and the page. Yeah. So, another thing I mean by that is cultures and religions. Yeah. If there is an elven culture or an elven religion, it's so much harder to get your head around than it is to just transplant Christianity into another world and just have humans be the dominant race there. Yeah, you're essentially making your setting medieval Europe, which is something that everyone knows, everyone can identify with. It's easy mode. Yeah, you can do that, and there's nothing wrong with that, as long as there are a few quirks, which we'll get to a bit later on. So humans, the safe option. So let's fix that, shall we? So, number one, give your humans a quirk, okay? Just like any other fantasy race. Do not look at humans as the bog standard race in your setting, okay? Elves have their own thing, dwarves have their own thing, you know, orcs have their own thing. Whatever you have in your setting their race should have their own quirk, their own style. Humans should do that as well. They shouldn't be the everyman. They shouldn't just be humans from Earth who are just there in the background, serving as the you know, I have an analogy of in a fantasy setting, if you're looking at the people, like the table is the world, right? You have a table. The table is the world that you've built, yeah? The cloth that goes on the table is humans and human society, medieval Europe. And then the cups and saucers and plates and all the frilly things, the cool things that go on top, they are the elves, the dwarves, all the different races that are also there in the background, yeah? A lot of settings work like this. The Witcher works like this. Lord of the Rings works like this. Tons of settings work like that. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just been done to death. And I'm sick of picking up books at Waterstones and looking at the back and going, oh, another one. Okay, cool. You know, and it's just... I'm not saying make humans one of the sources and things. What I'm saying is, like, make everyone the tapestry, yeah? Make everyone the tapestry. Every race should be the tapestry on the bottom. Yeah? They should be the cloth that goes on the table. And then you add other things on top of that. Like magic styles and, you know, economies and diseases and all sorts. They're the things that should go on top of it. So, number 2, do not treat your humans as the normal, but let them have a drastic problem all of their own. So they should have something that they're facing, yeah? Elves have the fact that, in Lord of the Rings, elves have the fact that they're dying, you know, that they're leaving very soon. They're in the autumn of their years in Middle-earth. They're about to leave. You know, dwarves have the fact that they don't really have a homeland anymore. Most of their homelands were destroyed, and now they're pretty much nomadic people. You know, walking around doing their own thing. They only have a few holdfasts left, and so they stubbornly hold on to that. Humans are just humans in Lord of the Rings. They're just normal. They are the normal people. Yeah, they rule most of the world. They should have a drastic problem all of their own. They should have their own deal. Okay? And we'll get on to what my one is later on. I do have an example. I'm not going to chicken out on you. I do actually have an example. So, number 3. Make human culture something distinct and memorable. Okay? Throw away the standard medieval Europe style. Make them stand out. Okay? Do not do knights, banners, you know, steel armor, you know, normal blokes, okay? If you want to do that, that's fine, but they need to have another quirk in there as well, okay? There needs to be some twist on the style. For instance, the biggest portrayal of this that I've seen, especially in gaming, was the Elder Scrolls series, where before Oblivion came out, you know, you had this description of the Imperial Province, and it sounded like a weird mishmash of, like, Roman and Japanese, you know, armors and banners and language and things that all meshed into one. And then finally in Oblivion you go to the Imperial Province and it's just standard medieval Europe. And it's just, you know, you've made this game like any other game in the world. Okay, I could do this anywhere. I could be, you know, fantasy is fantasy for a reason. If you want to write historical fiction, then go right ahead and write historical fiction. If you want to write a really low fantasy setting that's very historically accurate, that's fine, go for it. But, like, if you want your humans to stand out, if you want your setting to be different, you need to make human culture something that isn't markedly medieval Europe, okay? You need to make it stand out, make it jump out from the crowd. And again, I will have an example for you a bit later on. And number 4, keep them as the most numerous race, that's fine. Yeah, most numerous is good. This gives your world a tie-in to Earth and allows other fantasy races to still feel special. So, humans feel special, they're the most numerous race. And that's the one thing that I like about the way humans use them in most settings, that they are the most numerous. They are the people who rule empires. But there should be a reason why they're the most numerous. There should be a reason why they have the most empires and kingdoms in the world. There should be a reason why they're the ruling race. Not just because they're humans, they're adaptable, and they're zealous. Yeah? Cool. Those are the problems, let's fix them. So example, the world of Phalanx. Right? So the world of Phalanx is something that I'm making at the moment. It's something that I'm building. I'm actually writing a role-playing game at the moment, which will be on Kickstarter pretty soon. And in the world of Phalanx, I've tried to practice what I preach, basically. You know, in the world of Phalanx, humans are the most numerous race, but they are infected race-wide by a thing called the Reaper Plague. Now, the Reaper Plague is a very nasty thing. It causes all humans to die painfully as their lungs collapse around the ages of 35 to 50. So essentially, all humans are born with this disease, and it's a degenerative disease, and it can take you at any time. If you remain healthy, like as a healthy living person, you can live to around 45 to 50. But most of the time, most people as you can imagine, in a poverty-stricken world, will be living between 35 and 40. This is what gives humans their drive, you see? See what I was saying before? They have drive. Why do they have drive? Why are they adaptable? Because they have to be. They must achieve whatever they can as quickly as they can. As such, they build empires where longer-lived races like dwarves and elves don't. Yeah? They build empires because they have to. They have to procreate. They have to keep going. They have to push on. They have to get everything in the world that they want. They have to get yesterday. That's when they needed it, yesterday. Because they're going to die soon. Yeah? And I've taken that a little bit further, and I said, okay, human culture is fixated on death and overcoming it. You know, skulls are very present in architecture all around the world. You know, necromancy was rife for a time, so all humans have a natural distrust of all things magical. Yeah. So you know, what would you do in a world with magic if your people die? Well, you'd try and extend your life by any means necessary. And of course, there are different people who would take that to more extremes than others, and those people would dabble in things like necromancy and other things, and they would try and, you know, bring their loved ones back and things like that. If a whole society is so fixated on not dying so young, this would be something that would naturally happen, yeah? As necromancy becomes rife, it creates wars, it creates afflictions, and so the world as we see it now, magic is really distrusted because necromancy was so virulent for a while. It's not anymore, you know, because they figured out ways to police it better. But at the moment, you know, people have a reason for distrusting magic. This is what I mean. This is what I mean about a medieval Europe. Medieval Europe, yes, people distrusted magic. Yes, people would burn you for having magic. But in this world, there's a reason why people don't like magic, yeah? Because magic can be very beneficial. If you're a druid, you can do crop rotations really well. If you're a healer, you obviously, if you're a doctor, you can heal people. You know, it's very beneficial. So there must be a reason why humans do not like magic, and this is the reason, yeah? There are quite a lot of people in the world of Phalanx who think that the Reaper Plague is magical in origin as well, which is something that we'll get into if I ever do explain the setting for you. I probably will. But this is the humans in the world of Phalanx, okay? So they have their own quirk, they have their own problem. There's a reason why they have the biggest empires in the world. There's a reason why they have this drive to be the best and to get out there. They're natural adventurers, yeah? I explain in the setting that, you know, humans are natural adventurers because they're not really that afraid of death. You know, if you're going to live to about 40 anyway, and you're 30, and you're faced with either you're running headlong into this dragon or letting it murder your friends, you'd do that. You'd go, yeah, fuck this shit, you know, and you'd go for him, yeah? Humans in this culture have a very laconic and black sense of humour when it comes to death. Yeah, so they have their own endearing quirks as well. They're not just normal humans. They have their own, you know, they laugh in the face of death essentially because they're this is what they are. They're going to face it anyway. Yeah, they're doom driven. That's what I've called them. They're doom driven. They're humans. They are doom driven. So that's their problem. Yeah, this is what the humans' problem. This is what their problem is in the world. And there's a mystery there as well. So if you ever wanted to explore that, you could find out where the Reaper Plague comes from. And what would happen to this world if you took away the Reaper Plague and people started living for longer? What would happen then? You know, these are all questions that you should be asking with your fantasy races. And this is why they shouldn't be bog standard. This is why you should add quirks and different things, because this is how stories are made, okay? This is how worlds are given depth. So, yeah. I think there's one more thing I wanted to go on about. So in conclusion, number one, make them different. Treat humans as any other fantasy race rather than the bog standard option, okay? Number two, give them a problem, like I did with the Reaper Plague, okay? Some defining trait that means they are just as in trouble as everyone else. Yeah? So, if the elves are in trouble because of one thing, they're going into the autumn of their years, things like that. Imagine putting the Reaper Plague in Lord of the Rings. How much more interesting would humans be? Whoops. Got my sister messaging me about Game of Thrones. You know, how much more interesting would they be if, you know, if the Reaper Plague was in Lord of the Rings? You know, how much more tragic would humans be as a race if they were confronting Sauron and they were all about to die within a 10-year lifespan, you know? And what if you then say that the Reaper Plague came from Sauron and it was revealed that, you know, things like that happening, so by defeating Sauron you get rid of the Reaper Plague? You know, what a good ending that would be. That sort of a thing, you see? It makes them a lot more interesting, gives them a lot more depth. Give them a distinct culture and stay away from safe themes like medieval Europe. So again, there's nothing wrong with doing medieval Europe if that's what you really want to do. Okay, but you have to give them their own quirk. Like in the world of Phalanx, for instance, there is a medieval feudal society, but it's Japanese based. Okay, it's based on people like samurai and people like that. All of their armor is very samurai style and things like that. Whereas the more north you go, the more back into Europe it goes. Yeah, so if you go into the empires that are north of where the main story is taking place, they actually have legions. They're like a Roman Empire. They have legions. They have contuberniums. They have mixed cavalry. They have actual knights. Yeah, that are called cavalieri. Okay, so you know there is a taste of medieval Europe there just to bring people in, but the main crux of the actual feudal society in the world is a Japanese style. It's different, but it's still feudal. There are still lords, there are still barons, there are still, you know, people like knights and people. Obviously, it has a different name in the setting, but there are people like knights and people like that. It's still recognisable, but it has that different tinge. It has that different layer of paint, just to make it strange enough, just to make it different enough, so people go, "Oh, that's interesting. That has cultural depth." Yeah. Medieval Europe is bog standard. It's great, which is why we use it. It's very interesting, but it's been used to death. So if you want to stand out, stay away from it. Okay? And number 4, give them a reason to become the most powerful race politically, rather than some mythical drive. Okay? So a lot of races, you know, they have this drive. They have this, you know, weird, humans are driven, and they have adaptability, and as I've said before, and they have they're very zealous, and they're very opinionated. You know, there's one line from Mass Effect where somebody says, you know, if you stick two humans in a room, there'll be 4 different opinions on any one topic. Yeah, that's fine, But why are we like that, and why are other races not like that? Because other races will be like that. What, are you saying other races are stupid? Like, you know, just there should be a reason why they make. If they are the most numerous race in your setting, that's fine, that's great, that's what I do. But they have to have a reason to be that. Yeah, in my world, you know, they are the most numerous race because they're procreating all the time because they have to, or they will die out. Yeah, they're building these empires because they have to be safe, or they will die out. Because they're surrounded by other races that are much longer lived than they are. Yeah. So have a reason for humans being so driven and so zealous and so in your face, and we want this, we want to go out and explore, we want to go out and be adventurers. Give them a reason for doing that. Yeah. That is it. That is all I've got to say on humans. You know, thanks for turning up. And I don't know what the next one's going to be on, to be honest with you. I'm going to give it a little bit of thought. But if you want me to do any more on races, you let me know, because I have things to say about every race and about how to spice them up a little bit. But we'll be going into world building number 3 next time. So we've done world building in general, and we've done humans. Those are 2 very, very, very big parts of world building that are very, very important. So yeah, that's it. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you later.